Most operators climb up onto a 40-degree slope, and they treat it exactly like it's flat ground. And that right there, that single mindset, is why 95% of them end up sliding sideways with their heart pounding out of their chest, staring at a machine that costs more than most houses, wondering how everything went so wrong so fast. Because here is the thing nobody tells you. When you are up on that incline, you aren't just fighting dirt anymore. You are fighting physics. You are fighting the way the machine was built. You are fighting hydraulic systems that cannot keep up. And you are fighting your own brain, which is lying to you every single second about what is actually happening. Let me walk you through the first trap, and it is a trap that gets almost everybody. It is the way your eyes play tricks on you. If you have spent years running a motor grader on flat ground, your body has built up this library of instincts. You know how the blade should look when it is cutting right. You know how the machine should feel when it is balanced. Your hands and your feet just know what to do without you even thinking about it. But the moment you hit that steep slope, your center of gravity moves. It shifts way over to the downhill side, and your brain has absolutely no experience with that. None. You have never felt that before, so you have no idea what normal is supposed to feel like. So you look out the window and you try to eyeball the blade, but your reference points are gone. The horizon is tilted. The cab is tilted. Your inner ear is screaming at you that you're about to roll over, but your eyes are telling you that everything looks fine. And in that confusion, you hesitate, or you overcorrect, or you just keep going because you do not know what else to do. And then the blade catches something, maybe a rock, maybe a soft spot, maybe you just dug in a little too deep on the uphill side, and suddenly the machine starts to drift. Now here is the part that gets me. By the time you actually feel that drift, by the time your body registers that something is wrong, the machine has already been sliding for a full second or more. You are not reacting to the slide starting, you are reacting to the slide already happening. And that delay, that gap between when it starts and when you feel it, is usually the difference between catching it and going over. Let me explain why the machine slides so easy once it gets going, because it is not just about weight, it is about how the grader is built. On flat ground, articulation is no big deal. You turn the front frame, the back follows, you go around a corner. Simple. But on a steep slope, articulation changes everything. When you turn that front section, you shift the whole pivot point of the machine. You change where the weight is sitting. Suddenly, those downhill tires are not just carrying their share of the load, they are the hinge. They are the point that everything else is trying to rotate around, and they are not designed for that. They're just tires. Now add the blade into this mess. If you have that mold board positioned wrong, if it is too high on the uphill side, it becomes a lever. It catches the dirt and it starts lifting the uphill wheels. And when those uphill wheels come off the ground, even just a little bit, all that weight transfers instantly to the downhill side. We are talking tens of thousands of pounds slamming onto two tires that were already struggling. That is what we call high side lift, and it is one of the fastest ways to flip a grader that exists. The craziest part is that even brand new machines with all the latest stability technology cannot do anything about this. Those sensors measure the angle of the machine. They do not measure whether the ground under that downhill tire is about to turn into soup. They do not know if the dirt is soft or wet or layered on top of something harder. By the time the sensor beeps at you, the ground has already failed and you are already on your way down. So let us say you feel it starting to go. You grab the joystick and you yank it, trying to bring the blade around and stop the slide. And this is where the machine just stabs you in the back. Hydraulic lag. Every piece of heavy equipment has it. You move the lever and there is always this tiny delay before the component actually moves. On flat ground, you don't even notice it. You work around it without thinking. But on a 40-degree slope, that tiny delay might as well be an hour. You correct, but the machine keeps sliding while you wait for the blade to respond. So you correct more. You overdo it. And now the blade swings too far and the machine lurches the other way and you have started this back and forth rocking motion that you cannot stop. And it gets worse depending on the weather. If it is cold out, that hydraulic fluid is thick. It moves slow. You move the lever and nothing happens for a second, and then everything happens at once. If it is hot, the fluid thins out and now your fine adjustments feel mushy and vague. You're trying to make tiny little corrections to keep a 50,000-pound machine balanced, and the hydraulics are basically lying to you about what they are doing. The guys who make it look easy, the ones who spend all day up on those slopes without breaking a sweat, they're not reacting to the machine. They're moving the blade before the slide even starts. They're steering into it before the machine knows it needs to be steered. They have learned to feel what is coming instead of just responding to what already happened. But here's the thing. You can have the fastest hands in the world. You can have hydraulic reflexes like a fighter pilot, and it will not matter one bit if your tires are wrong. Nobody talks about this enough. Everybody wants to talk about blade control and articulation and center of gravity, but the real story is happening down there where the rubber meets the dirt. Those standard tire pressures that you run on every other job, the ones in the manual, they are a disaster waiting to happen on a side slope. At normal pressure, a tire is round and firm and it rolls straight, but on a steep incline, that round tire gets hit with sideways force. The sidewall starts to fold. The tread lugs, the ones that are supposed to dig in and grab the ground, they twist and deform. Instead of biting in like teeth, they flatten out and turn into smooth sliding pads. You might as well be on ice. You have to understand how the load shifts. As the machine tilts, the weight on those downhill tires does not just increase a little, it multiplies. It's exponential. If your tire pressure is too high, the tire balloons up in the middle, and you lose your contact patch. You're riding on a narrow strip of rubber with no grip. If your pressure is too low, the sidewall collapses, and the rim starts digging into the tire, and you will cut it open on the first rock you hit. You have to adjust. Soft ground needs lower pressure to spread that weight out and float on top instead of digging in and shearing loose. Rocky ground needs higher pressure to protect the sidewalls. And if you're running the same pressure you used last week on a highway job, you're basically gambling with the machine every time you go up that slope. So, how do the 5% do it? How do they spend all day on slopes that would have the rest of us white-knuckling the controls and praying for flat ground? They throw out the rule book. They forget everything they learned about running a grader on flat land, and they start thinking about the machine differently. When the back end starts sliding downhill, every instinct you have says turn the front wheels uphill, pull yourself back onto the slope, stop the slide. That is exactly the wrong thing to do. Turning uphill when you are sliding just throws more weight to the downhill side and guarantees you keep going over. The guys who know what they are doing steer into the slide. They point the front wheels downhill. It feels insane. It feels like you're driving yourself off the edge, but it works because you're using the machine's own weight to pull it back onto the slope instead of fighting against gravity. And then there's the move that separates the pros from everybody else. Low blade, high articulation. You drop that blade down low, almost like you are using it as a crutch to hold yourself up, and you articulate the rear frame toward the toe of the blade. You point the back of the machine at the blade. This does two things. First, it shifts your center of gravity back toward the middle of the machine, taking some of that killer weight off the downhill tires. Second, it turns the mold board into an anchor. You are not cutting dirt anymore. You are using that blade to drag, to hold yourself in place, to stop sliding while you figure out what to do next. You stop worrying about making the grade pretty. You go into survival mode. You use every piece of steel on that machine to keep yourself upright. And only once you're stable, only once you have stopped moving, only then do you start thinking about actually working again. It is strange when you think about it. To be good on steep slopes, you have to unlearn almost everything that made you good on flat ground. You have to stop trusting your instincts, because your instincts were built for a different world. You have to stop reacting and start anticipating. You have to accept that the machine is lying to you, that the hydraulics are lying to you, that your own eyes and ears are lying to you. The only things you can trust are the physics, center of gravity, weight distribution, what the ground is actually doing under those tires. Those are your real controls. Those are what decide whether you finish the day grading or spend it waiting for a tow truck to pull you out of a ditch. That is why 95% fail. Not because they're bad at their jobs, not because they're careless or stupid. They fail because this situation demands something that most operators never have to develop. It demands a feel for forces you cannot see, a sense for things that happen too fast to react to. The 5% who make it, they are not just operators. They are not just guys who got lucky. They are students of the machine. They have learned to feel the weight shift before it shifts. They have learned to read the dirt and know when it is about to let go. They have learned to trust the moves that look wrong but keep the rubber side down. And that is the difference between being a statistic and being the guy who goes home at the end of the day. So next time you climb up on a steep slope, just remember, that machine is not your friend. It is 50,000 pounds of steel and hydraulics that is always, always trying to fall over. Your whole job is convincing it not to.